family, can we take a moment? Because I believe there's something the Lord is pressing on our hearts today. You see, we often talk about prayer, how powerful it is, how necessary it is. But we rarely talk about the posture, not just physical posture, but spiritual alertness. And today, I want to talk to the one who has made the bed a prayer altar. Not out of discipline, but out of comfort. The Bible gives us subtle yet strong cautions about drowsiness, about slumber, and about a spirit that becomes lazy in the presence of God. This is not about condemnation, it's about awakening, because there is a difference between rest and spiritual apathy. And the enemy, he just needs to steal your prayer life. He just needs you to get comfortable enough to sleep through it. Through today, I want to invite you into a deeper conversation about the heart posture behind your prayer, the intentionality of your time with God, and why your bed might not be the battlefield you think it is. Comfort is the silent killer of spiritual discipline. It sneaks in quietly, unannounced, and often disguised as rest, as ease, or even as self-care. But before long, what once was sacred becomes casual, and what was once fervent becomes passive. You see, when we begin to seek God only in our comfort zones, we lose the sharpness of pursuit. Spiritual discipline is not birthed in convenience. It is forged in consistency. And consistency requires a willingness to step outside what feels good and step into what grows us. There's a reason the Bible constantly calls us to be alert, to be watchful, to pray without ceasing. That doesn't happen in a spirit of passivity. That happens when there is intentional effort to press in, especially when our flesh desires to pull back. The danger of comfort is that it lulls us into a rhythm where excellence becomes optional and devotion becomes delayed. And slowly, without even realizing it, our spirit becomes desensitized. We stop hearing clearly. We stop seeing deeply. We start settling for just enough when God called us to overflow. Think about it. How many times have you told yourself, I'll just pray from here in bed where it's warm, where I'm already settled, and 10 minutes later you're asleep? And if you're not asleep, your mind is drifting, because comfort diminishes intentional focus. It creates an environment where distraction thrives. The enemy doesn't always need to attack your prayer life with hardship. Sometimes all he needs to do is surround you with so much ease that you lose urgency. You begin to exchange encounters with God for moments that are convenient. Discipline was never meant to feel good to the flesh. That's why it produces fruit in the spirit. And this is not to say that God cannot meet you in your bed. He can meet you anywhere. But the point is not about location, it's about posture. It's about the state of your heart when you approach him. Are you seeking him from a place of deep reverence or from a place of casual habit? Are you willing to rise up and make time, or are you hoping that he'll just slide into your day without interruption? Comfort often tricks us into thinking we're doing enough. But spiritual hunger is never satisfied with just enough. It wants more. It pursues more. And pursuit doesn't happen without effort. It requires waking up early. It requires stepping away from the noise. It requires being alert when your flesh wants to be numb. And this is the tension of spiritual growth. It demands that we continually choose what builds us, even when it doesn't feel comfortable. Posture reflects priority. Honor God with your intentionality. The way you approach God reveals more about your heart than your words ever could. We often think prayer is just about saying the right things, but heaven listens to posture. And not just physical posture, though that matters too, but the posture of your heart, your mind, your spirit. Are you coming before God with reverence or with routine? Is your time with Him sacred or simply squeezed into the leftovers of your day? When someone is important to you, you show up with attention. You don't multitask your way through conversations that matter. You don't casually lay back when someone you admire is speaking. And yet, how often do we approach the creator of the universe like he's just a background voice in our busy lives? We try to fit him into 10 minutes before sleep or a few scattered thoughts between emails. But what we're really doing is showing him our priority. And the truth is, what you honor, you prepare for. You make space for it. You give it your focus. If your spiritual life feels dry, it may not be a lack of desire. It might be a lack of posture. There's something powerful about getting up, getting dressed, setting the atmosphere, and meeting with God like you believe He's actually going to show up. That's what honor looks like. Intentionality says, God, you are worth my time. You are worth my full attention. You are worth me leaving the bed, turning off my phone, and coming before you. Fully present. That's my legalism. That's like, we wouldn't take a meeting with someone important while lying down under the covers. We wouldn't conduct a job interview with our eyes half closed. But sometimes we treat our communion with God with less intentionality than we treat our daily tasks. And the Spirit of God is gentle, but He is holy. He is near, but He is not casual. If we want deeper intimacy, we have to start showing up like it matters. Like He matters, and how you come before God speaks volumes about what you believe about Him. Intentionality is not about perfection. It's not about performance. It's about preparation. It's about creating space that says, this is important to me. You are important to me. It's about silencing the distractions that compete for your affection. And the thing is, God doesn't need us to come in a certain position. He's looking at the heart. But what we do with our bodies can train our minds and hearts to come into alignment. That's why kneeling, standing, lifting our hands, they aren't just outward signs. They are inward declarations made visible. When you prioritize your time with God, you begin to feel the shift. You walk into your prayer time with expectation. You enter worship with awareness. You open the Word with hunger. Because you've decided that this moment is more than a routine. It's a meeting with the King. The bed invites rest. Prayer requires alertness. These two purposes often conflict, though we try to blend them without realizing the cost. The bed is a place of comfort, of letting go, of closing your eyes and shutting down. But prayer, especially the kind that transforms you, calls for your full awareness. It calls for engagement, not relaxation. It asks your spirit to rise even when your body wants to lay low. When you attempt to merge sacred conversation with a setting designed for sleep, something is compromised. Usually your focus. There's something subtle but dangerous about praying where you sleep. Not because it's wrong to talk to God in bed, but because the setting itself pulls your mind into a state of rest, not readiness. It's hard to stay spiritually alert when your environment is whispering, just relax, just close your eyes, just drift off. And if we're honest, many times that's exactly what happens. The intention to pray turns into drowsiness, and drowsiness turns into silence. Not the holy kind, but the kind that forgets mid-sentence why it even began to pray. Scripture is full of reminders to be watchful in prayer. Jesus told his disciples in the garden, watch and pray, so that you will not fall into temptation. But they kept falling asleep, not because they didn't love him, but because their flesh was weak. That same battle exists in us. Our spirit may be willing, but when we stay in places that soothe our flesh more than stir our spirit, we fall into passivity. Prayer is not passive. It is alert, awake, and aware. The moments that call for intercession, breakthrough, or clarity require more than a whisper in the dark. They require us to show up fully. That doesn't always mean loud words or dramatic gestures. It means your heart, your mind, your spirit are engaged. That's hard to do in bed. Not impossible, but difficult. Because your body receives cues from its environment. And when the cue is rest, your spirit must fight even harder to stay active. Some battles aren't lost because of a lack of desire, but because of the wrong setting. That's why many people find more power in stepping away from the bed, even if just a few feet, and kneeling beside it. That shift in posture tells your body, this is different. It reminds your mind that this is not the time to rest, it's the time to reach. Prayer isn't just about speaking, it's about listening, discerning, pressing in. All of that is dulled when your body begins to drift towards sleep. You might start with good intentions, but good intentions can't override natural patterns unless you interrupt them. Being alert in prayer is about honoring the sacredness of the moment. It's about recognizing that this isn't just another activity, it's an encounter. And encounters with God require your full self to be present. Your alertness creates space for revelation. Your attentiveness invites deeper connection. And that level of engagement rarely happens by accident. It's cultivated through posture, preparation, and the willingness to rise even when everything else tells you to lay down. Casual spaces can produce casual encounters. Where you meet with God often shapes how you meet with Him. When the space is overly familiar, overly comfortable, it can subtly train your spirit to treat holy moments with a casual mindset. God is omnipresent. He can meet you anywhere. But the depth of your encounter often depends on the intention behind the space you've created. When there is no separation between sacred and secular in your environment, your spirit begins to blur the line between routine and reverence. The place you pray in sends a signal to your soul. It says, this is important. Or it says, This is just another moment in my day. And while God's grace covers us wherever we are, our level of attention, surrender, and openness is often shaped by the environment we're in. A bed, a couch, or a phone in hand can subtly pull us into casual rhythms that do not stir the soul. We begin to pray half engaged with the TV on in the background, or while scrolling, or while lying down, thinking we're giving God our best. But we're offering fragments of thought, of energy, of heart. Holy ground is not about the location. It's about how you treat the location. What makes a space sacred is the intentionality you bring to it. When Moses approached the burning bush, the ground didn't become holy because of the sand. It became holy because of God's presence and Moses' response. He removed his sandals. He shifted his posture. He recognized that this was not just another spot on his journey. Something was different. Casual spaces don't remind us to take off our shoes. They don't pull us out of routine. They let us keep walking in the same mindset we had before the moment began. When you treat prayer like a task that can fit anywhere, you start losing the awe that builds intimacy. You begin to assume God will just slide into whatever moment you give him, no matter how distracted or unprepared you are. But God doesn't just want access, he desires reverence. And reverence doesn't grow in a casual atmosphere. Reverence is cultivated where there is space, silence, focus, and expectancy. It's in those spaces, those rooms you've cleared, those corners you've set aside, those walks where you silence your phone and your thoughts, that God often speaks most clearly. When the environment is casual, it's easy to lose the weight of who you're talking to. You begin to speak to God with familiarity, but lose the fear of the Lord. You reduce conversation with the Almighty to background noise in a busy life. But when you create space that feels set apart, your spirit rises to meet the moment. You walk in differently. You listen differently. You respond differently. Not because God changes, but because you do. And those changes in you, your posture, your tone, your focus, shape the kind of encounter you receive. Casual environments don't stir hunger. They satisfy habits. But hunger is what draws heaven. Hunger is what brings clarity. Hunger creates an atmosphere where miracles become possible.